Today I'm going to do what I hope is a fun video. I was having a discussion about a week ago with a knife maker friend of mine about how I use choils to spark a ferro rod and start a fire. And he was actually surprised that I did that. And he was even more surprised that I find that I did that with some of his knives. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that when I have a knife with a choil on it and it's not throwing great sparks on the spine, I revert immediately to the choil. And the reason I do that is because I think, and I don't know, I'm not a knife maker, but I think that the choil, because it's close to the edge, because it's close to the thinness of the edge, tends to be harder in some cases than the spine. And I typically find that that is very true with custom-made knives, especially custom-made knives that are done in the brute to forge style. I've got several brute to forge knives, most of which I can't get good sparks off the spine, but I can typically get sparks off the choil. So what I'm going to do today, I've brought out all of the knives that I have that have choils or that have something similar to a choil or enough space in the ricasso area that I can use it as a choil and spark a ferro rod. From left to right, we've got the Work Tough Gear Puzon Wilderness Bowie. We've got the Work Tough Gear Nomad Camp Knife. We've got the Tim Ellis BX3 or Big Bad Bushcrafter. Dark Timber Knives Custom OG Grizzly, Dark Timber Knives Mid-Tech OG Grizzly, Work Tough Nomad Field Knife, Dark Timber Knives Honey Badger, FOBOS Knives Custom MKB7, FOBOS Knives Bark River Collaboration Legion, Randall 25.6, Randall 25.5, and Vehement Knives Custom Kuto Misa. I've got this Fatwood that I gathered from the Immigrant Wilderness. It is not as good as the Fatwood that you've seen me make fires with in the past, so that should be a good test to the spark producing capabilities of some of these knives. I've got my ratty old ferro rod, which I tend to use for everything, and we'll just go through each knife and see how they produce Fatwood shavings and how they spark a ferro rod. We'll test both the spine and the choil. First knife up, which I've not shown very often, is my custom Kuto Misa. Matt Martin made this for me. If you're a Vehement Knives fan, you'll notice that it doesn't have an upper quillion, and the reason being is a couple of years ago I did a test of all my field knives, and the Kuto Misa was in a position to actually win that comparison test, but it didn't. And the reason it didn't was because the upper quillion was very uncomfortable for me to use. Matt Martin found out about that, and Matt rang me up and he said, hey, would you like me to make you a Kuto Misa at Blade Show without the quillion? And I said, yeah, sure. So this is definitely one of my favorite knives. It's made out of one of my favorite steels, which is CPM 154 CM, which means it's a stainless steel. It's great for fishing. It's got a great choil. I can choke up on it. The one thing, I know it's not going to spark a ferro rod well, if at all, from the choil. And the reason being is Matt does something unique with his choils. He radiuses them. So you can see that it's all smoothed out in here. So it's nice and comfortable for your finger. It makes it comfortable to use, but it's not good for sparking a ferro rod. So I don't recall if the spine on this sparks a ferro rod well, so we'll find out. It is doing a good job of producing really super fine shavings. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two piles. Well, maybe not. I mean, I know with this knife, I know there's almost no way it's going to spark a ferro rod, but we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. It's got the radiused choil, so it's just not. But the spine feels pretty sharp. So let's see what we got going on here. Yep, you can see it throws. Throws plenty of sparks. Should be a no-brainer. Now, it is not the knife. It is this Fatwood. Because I'm getting great sparks. I'm getting burning here. It just hasn't lit. There we go. So as I said, this Fatwood is going to require a little bit more effort than what I typically have to show. But that makes it a good test. Okay, that was the Vehement Knives Kuto Misa. Next up, we have the Randall 25.5. Now the Randall 25.5, you can see this is completely, I mean, it's beveled here and it's smooth here. It's got this jimping in the back. This is not sharp whatsoever. However, I might be able to get something from the inside. This is another one of my favorite knives. It's compact, it's comfortable, you know, it looks absolutely beautiful. It's a Randall. I have not used it very much. And the spine is not, yeah, I mean, spine is not going to really give me any shavings. It's doing a little bit, but not doing it very efficiently. So let's use the blade. The blade, I am getting, of course, fine curls as opposed to small shavings. And it could be with this Fatwood that small curls are better than fine shavings. So with the Kuto Misa, I was getting really powdery Fatwood shavings, and here I'm getting fine curls. So we'll see if that turns out to be the case. Then I will retry the Kuto Misa just so it gets a fair shake. And let's give the Kuto Misa its due again. Okay, I've got a wide pile of thin shavings. First time, there you go. Okay, so my expectation is the inside here is where I'm going to spark it. So you can see, not really a choil, but I guess it's an extended ricasso. I don't know. But what I tend to do is I'll tend to put it right in this little nook. First, I always sort of like to practice off of the side. Okay, we're not going to get very much off of this. Get a little bit. Maybe this way would be better. Nope. Okay, so we'll try pushing down. Yep, getting some sparks, but I'm not getting any sort of ignition. So I think that is all I'm going to try with that. You know, somebody asked me to do a demo or a review of this knife, and again, I love this knife, and it is the smallest knife that I would recommend for backpacking, but it is not going to be that survival situation knife where you're going to be making fires and everything else with it. You're just not. I probably could if I give it a little bit more effort, but you know, when you're in a survival situation and you're cold, you need to do something fast. This is a great wilderness knife, so if I have a saw or an axe, it's a great knife to have. If I have another way to make a fire, I think this is a great knife to have, and I do absolutely love this. I take it mostly fishing and day hiking, but extended backpacking trip, this would not be the knife that I would take. And just to check the spine, yeah, spine is not going to be producing any sparks. But now that I've got these fine shavings, let me give the Kuto Misa another shot to see if these shavings make a difference and in terms of how well this stuff lights. Little difference, right? I mean, this Fatwood is not like the Fatwood that I had before. The Fatwood I had before was very resinous. It was almost sticky, and so when you used the spine of the knife, you got thicker curls. Well, you got the thin curling shavings, but you know, with this is very hard, and so when you scrape it, you're basically getting dust particles. Okay, this is the Randall 25.6. Similar situation, beveled spine. You're not going to get a spark off of that. We'll try the spark off of the choil. I have started a fire with this before, so I know this one will work a lot better than the other. Now it's interesting, I am getting really fine powder again. So let me change the angle. Yeah, I changed the angle. Now I'm getting the curls. Okay, this is a little bit bigger pile than I had before. There we go. That one's pretty fast. I did have a little bit larger pile, so maybe I'll go with a larger pile going forward. Now, in terms of wilderness knives, I would take the Randall 25-6 into the wilderness, and I have. I went on a weekend backpacking trip with this, and it performed fine. I did some batoning. It was great. I would feel much more confident in the backcountry with this knife than I would with the 25-5. Now, here's a knife that I've not shown before. This is the FOBOS Legion, and I've had this for quite a while. It is my cert knife, and so this is the knife that I keep on that pack for emergencies. But since it does have a choil, and it was actually designed to start a fire off of that choil, that's why it has sort of this uniquely shaped choil. That was the reason behind it. We're going to go ahead and use that choil just for that. We'll see how the spine produces shavings. Yep, I'm getting fine curls, making sure I've got my angle right to produce those curls. And the pile I'm making going forward, I think is going to be about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches in diameter. You know, when you're in a backcountry situation, you're going to want to err on excess, right? You're not going to want to have too small a pile of fatwood. You want it to start first time, and you want it to be large enough so that you can light your tinder bundle, or if you don't have a tinder bundle, that you can light the the small twigs that you're going to be trying to light. So we're going to do two things. Actually, let me create two piles. So knowing that you're supposed to use the inside of the choil to spark the ferro rod on this knife, let's go ahead and use the back on the bigger pile and the choil on the smaller pile. That was pretty easy. Okay. Now the choil. You're supposed to use a choil with this. And it's got, you can see it's got this flat area right in here up near the edge. Oh, should have been sitting down. So that was fairly easy. The one thing I don't like about this knife, and I do like this knife, I haven't done a video on it, but it would be a good backpacking knife. It is a little bit on the heavier side, like the MKB7, but it's a bomber knife. The thing I don't like about this, though, is because this notch has been made specifically to start a fire steel, and the choil is squared off. And so what I find, I just think it's, for me at least, it's too easy to end up cutting myself when I'm trying to spark that ferro rod. So that is the reason why this is not my favorite knife to start a fire with. Next, we've got the MKB7. The MKB7 has this notch in the back, so there's no reason I would ever need to use the choil. And this notch, I mean, it throws, you can see, it is like the king of throwing sparks. As you can see, get some fatwood shavings and see what we can do. Another thing about that Legion, and again, that's the Bark River collaboration. FOBOS will be having a run of Legions next year, which will be, I'm sure, better performing. What I'm finding, though, is that this FOBOS does a far better job of producing the thin curlings that I want to start a fire than the Legion did. The Legion, I was struggling getting the size and thinness that I wanted. I was getting a lot of, instead of getting shavings, I was getting a lot of powder. But here I'm getting the shavings that I want. And it is far easier to start the fire with the shavings than the powder. So I expect this will light up pretty quickly. First time. And that's what you want, right? That's what you want in a knife that you have in the wilderness, because you're going to be cold, you're not going to have the dexterity in your fingers that you want, and so you want something that first time, boom, it lights right up. For giggles, let's try the Choil. So is it the Choil, or is it the shavings I made? Let's find out. Looks like it's the Choil. So with this knife, not as efficient as using the Choil, but I've got that notch, I don't need it. Next up, we've got the Dark Timber Honey Badger, which again is my choice for an extended backpacking trip knife. Anywhere from 5 to 5+ days. This is the knife that I would recommend. It is hard to acquire. It's nice and light. It does pretty much everything. Does everything well. Of course, it's not a chopping knife, but you can cross baton with it. It's just a really good general purpose outdoor knife. But I am not getting the shavings that I want off the spine, so we're going to use the edge. I'm trying to get these kind of really thin, long curls. If you're into woodworking and you do a lot of planing, it's those kind of curls that you want. And more so with this piece of fat wood than with the other stuff that I've been using. That is important. The other stuff lights right up. But I think this piece is a better challenge. Okay, let's see what kind of sparks we get off the spine. There we go. Not as many sparks as, say, the MKB7, but with those thin shavings, it did the job. Okay, let's check out the Choil. This is going to be a challenge, I think. Now you can see, it's not radiused like the Vehement, but right in here, it's chamfered, so that's going to make it tough. Maybe if I get the angle just right, I might be able to get some sparks. If I get the angle just right and place the ferro rod over the pile as opposed to behind it. Because I think what's going to happen is I'm going to get a few sparks and they're going to fall underneath the ferro rod. There we go. Took a little effort, but it happened. Next up is the Work Tuff Nomad field knife. I'm getting good, fine curlings with this, which is nice, right off the spine. And I prefer to use the spine to do this than the edge. If I'm in the backcountry, I'm going to want to preserve the edge as much as possible. So far, this has been one of the better knives to create these thin shavings. So off the spine, no issues here. This SK85 that Work Tuff uses really does a great job at sparking ferro rods. And the spines that they produce are top notch. Oh, that should have lit. There we go. Easy peasy. These Work Tuff knives have been some of the better knives that I've used to spark ferro rods. And these thin shavings are making all the difference, at least with this particular piece of fat wood. Let's see if the Choil will spark. I don't think it will. And on this, The choil is smooth, not so much as on the Vehement. It's not chamfered like the dark timber, but it is very smooth. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. I'm not getting any sparks. But on this knife, you don't need it because it sparks off the spine fine. Next up is the dark timber OG Grizzly. Yep, produces great shavings. Got great sparks right off the spine. This is 3V, and the spine is sharp. Whoops. 2 strokes and that was it. That last one I caught a little bit of the swedge as I was going down. So let's make some more. Oh yeah, these curls are great. So this is probably, and I'll have to go back and look at the video, but it's just from my general impression, this so far is making the best shavings. Maybe the MKV7 made shavings that were just as good. I'll have to go back and check. Yeah, these are better than the Nomad field knife, which again was making really good shavings. In fact, I've got fewer shavings here than I've done in most, but I've got a bigger pile because they're longer. Now let's see if I can do anything with this choil. I can barely get a spark off the choil, but let's see what happens. No, this is causing me to angle the knife down to get the right angle on the edge, and I can do it here because I've got all this down here to deal with, but I can't do it here because I'm going to hit my knuckles. So let's see. Even here, I don't think I'm not getting the right angle. Yeah, and I'm not low enough. I think if I tried long enough, it would ignite. But that's not why we're here. Next, dark timber custom OG Grizzly. Now I already know that I can't get a spark off the spine on this. You see the spine is sort of, it's got sort of that mirror finish on it, or at least it had, so it's not extremely sharp. It doesn't really want to bite in, and I'm getting the powdery shavings, so let's... Okay, so I get my fine shavings. Again, from experience, I'm not expecting anything off the spine. See? Yeah, you can. I'd have to push really hard. It's just not going to happen. However, from the choil, you see I get sparks all day. There we go, easy peasy. Next up is the big bad Bushcrafter from Ellis. So the spine isn't too sharp, at least not for scraping, so I'm gonna have to use the edge. No problem getting shavings with the edge, of course. Now let's see if the edge is gonna, or the spine is gonna give us a spark. Now, as I said, most brute to forge knives, I find it very difficult to spark off the spine. Yeah, that's going to be difficult. What about the choil? There we go. Choil wins out again. This knife, I might be better pulling up on it. There we go. Took a little effort. I think the issue with this one is the angle that I needed to use. I was getting close to hitting my knuckles, which I don't like. Let's try it a different way. Getting plenty of sparks. There we go. Yeah, I think with this, I would just need a bigger pile. I'm getting plenty of sparks, but they're more dispersed Nomad camp knife. Shouldn't have any issues with this. Again, it's a Work Tough Gear product, and you know, their spines and their ability to spark ferro rods, in my opinion, have been excellent. Now the shavings aren't as fine as some of the other knives. There we go. Change the angle a little bit more. Interesting. So on this knife, I have to cant the angle up just a tad. So just a bit closer to 90 degrees, maybe even a little bit beyond 90 degrees to get those curls, more so than with the other knives. Fire using the spine. No brainer with these knives. Yeah, I think that was the first time. I don't think I needed to do it twice. This choil, it's obviously been sanded so that it's comfortable, but let's see if it's still sharp enough to spark a ferro rod. Maybe not. And again, when I do this, I'm doing it towards the edge. I'm getting a little bit, but you know, again, this is getting close to me hitting my hand. So I'm going to say a no on this one. I bet I could force it, but again, you know, I'm hitting my fingers. I don't want to do that. Last but not least, the Puzon Wilderness Bowie. In my experience, this is the king of fire starting. It rivals the MKB7 off the spine. The MKB7 might be a little bit better, but it's a close matchup. This spine is sharp, sharp, sharp. It is a little bit harder to get sparks, but for whatever reason, those sparks are, I don't know if they're bigger or what, but you know, I did a test and I have a video on it. I'll link it, I guess, here. I did a test in my kitchen, and when I was using this knife, I consistently set the paper towel on fire. So let's see what happens. I expect greatness. As soon as I get the right pressure. Okay. Huh. Oh. Wait. And it's still there, sitting there smoldering, wanting to catch. Should I help it? Nah, I don't think so. It's burning. And this is exactly what happened with the paper towel. It sat there, and for whatever reason, these sparks, I don't know if they're bigger, but they'll sit there and smolder. And you can see, it's just smoldering there. And it's burning through the rest of the pile, but it's just not creating a flame. Like I said, it's harder to spark with this, but once I get my groove, there we go. It's just got to be a slow, strong stroke. Let's see if I'm right about that. Okay, creates those real thin, and in fact, these are really thin and thick curls, very much like planing. These are probably the thickest or the widest curls that I've created so far. Now that could be the knife, just could be the fact that I'm practicing getting better at doing that. And there we go. It's got to have a lot of pressure, but there it goes. And you can see it goes up fast. Okay, in terms of sparking off the spine, I think the MKB7 is the clear standout among these knives. It does it fast, it does it easy. This does it very strong, but again, you got to get the right feel for it. Now let's see if I can do it with the Choil. But I tell you, when it comes to these curls, I mean, these things are wide, they're thin, hard to beat, hard to beat. Let's see if we can get anything out of the Choil. There we go. So, spine or choil, Puzon Wilderness Bowie doesn't care. Let me break out the MKB7 again. Let's just do a heads up. So we'll see if I can get the same wide curls with this knife as I was with that knife. Yep, I'm getting good curls. I think it's just me getting better, canting it up so that it actually acts more like a scraper. So we'll do a pile of MKB7 shavings and a pile of Puzon Wilderness Bowie shavings. Again, one stroke with the MKB7 and I've got a fire started. So, you know, in cold conditions, this is the knife that I'm going to want to bring with me. And the Puzon Wilderness Bowie. Oh, first time this time. And again, it goes back to the shavings. These are better shavings that I produced than I have produced in the past. Okay, so let's make some shavings with the Wilderness Bowie. One time, and the MKB7. Oh, there we go. I think that was me more than the knife. So pretty evenly matched. I think I'd still give it to the MKB7 because it needed less practice to do. I mean, I sort of had to feel the Wilderness Bowie out to get that spark that I wanted, whereas with this, you know, it's no brainer. Throw sparks all day. This does the same. And they're big. I mean, look at that. Look how big those sparks are. And maybe you can't see that on the video, but they're huge. They're huge. But it does require a little bit more effort. It does require a little more focus to do. And again, if I'm in a situation in the cold, I'm going to have very little dexterity in my fingers. I may not be thinking clearly. Having a knife like this, that'll spark first or second time, every time without much thought. It's a no-brainer. So this is definitely the cold weather camping knife. So there you have it. I hope that was a fun video. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. You know, every time I do one of these videos, I learn something. And today I learned how to make better shavings with really hard fatwood. Again, the fatwood that I've been using in the past was more resinous, and it was almost sticky, so it was very easy to light. This stuff, which I harvested myself a couple years ago in the immigrant wilderness, it's very tough. It's very hard. And so at the beginning of the video, right, I was getting these powdery shavings, and by the end, I was getting these light, flaky, wide curls, which started much easier. So with that said, let's break out the Randall 25.5 again. So I've got the Randall 25.5. Let's make some wide, thin shavings and see if it lights up. You know, being a woodworker, I should have realized that this was a better way. Scraping was a better way of making these shavings. But in the past, with the fatwood that I've used in the past, I've really not had to scrape. That's a good pile. Nope, just not there. Again, I could probably sit on here all day and try to do this, but just not getting the quality sparks that I need. Let's go back to the Legion. Yep, I'm still not getting a good spark with that choil. I have seen guys do it well. I did do it earlier, but I think that was more luck than anything else. Big Bad Bushcrafter. That was another one that I had trouble with. Let's see if I've got a better pile of fatwood for this to work. There we go. So again, I don't like the angle that I have to use to get a fire with this, because my fingers get really close to banging into the wood. But if I've got the proper shavings and I get a spark, it's lighting up. So if you take anything away from this video, take away that you know, if you're using really dense, hard fatwood, you really want to do the thin shavings, the thin wide shavings. So hold the knife like you would a scraper, and as long as you're getting a decent spark off the ferro rod, it should light up. The other thing to take away from this is just, you know, in general, with each of these knives, how many sparks were they throwing? That I think is the other takeaway. So Kuto Misa, CPM 154, no problem. You know, throwing a lot of sparks. Randall 25.6, which is A2. Throwing a decent number of sparks, but a little bit more effort, and maybe not as much as the Kuto Misa. Bark River, FOBOS, Legion. Throwing more than enough sparks. In fact, it just lit up a piece that was sitting there. Also notice the pattern of distribution, right? Does it throw sparks, you know, in one place, or does it sort of seem to be spread all over the place? Now, part of that can be controlled by how I hold the knife. You know, I'm going to control the angle and where some of the sparks fall. But, you know, another part of it is just the characteristics of the knife, I believe. FOBOS MKB7. You know, these are bright white sparks that just get thrown all day, no problem. Dark Timber Honey Badger. Hot sparks, maybe not a whole bunch of them, but enough to start. Work Tough Gear, Nomad Field Knife. You can see that throws a whole lot of sparks. And again, how I hold it, so if I hold it here, it's sort of falling to the right. If I hold it this way, it sort of falls to the left. What you want to do really is try to keep it level so it falls forward. Also, if it's a really good knife and it's dropping sparks here and they're not getting pushed down, well, you may need to hold your ferro rod above the Fatwood or the tinder bundle. And if you watch my fire building video, you'll see that the way that I started the fire with this knife, because of where it was sort of in a well and I couldn't push down into it, I just stuck it down like this, put it over the Fatwood, and lit it up that way. OG Grizzly. Throws sparks all day. Custom OG Grizzly, again, off the Choil. Now these sparks, there aren't a whole bunch, but they're all falling in the same place. Big Bad Bushcrafter. Again, not many sparks. But these are all concentrated. Nomad Camp Knife. Now with a little more effort, this is throwing actually really hot sparks. And they seem to be sticking in one place. And when I say that, you know, some of the sparks that come off are sort of a reddish yellowish. Some of them are really sort of white. And the white, I presume, is going to be hotter. This has a dispersed pattern. It is not as wide as some of the others. It's not as narrow as some of the others. It's sort of in between. And last, but by no means least, Puzon Wilderness Bowie. You can see how long they sit there and just sort of crackle after they've been released from the rods. So these are very hot, and I presume that they're large because they sit there and crackle for a while, and that's why it starts a fire so well. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a fun video to make. I learned a lot, and thanks for watching.